Hello and welcome to Survival of the Thickest. This week we are joined by not one, but two special guests. We have the only guest to ever appear on the podcast, the engineer himself, Haydn. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Are you happy to be back? Are you
Absolutely.
ready to knock out some more podcasts?
I'm really excited to be here. Couldn't wait to be back again today this week.
You sound so
Everyone was clamouring for the sequel.
There is.
You would have been.
Trust
you
me, I'm
wouldn't
an
believe how many
engineer,
times
part
I've been spotted by voice around Sheffield. It's been absolutely incredible.
Were you the guy that did that podcast?
Yes.
Sorry. Such a famous voice. We're also joined by our new guest, Alex. Say hello.
You alright?
And Alex, you are a chemistry student.
Yeah.
And
He's also a northerner. That's our first
Yeah.
one on the podcast.
We really branch out, don't we?
Well, you know, it's all about meeting quotas these days. And
We had to have somebody from each area on the podcast. Or raking a chemistry. We don't even know who. We just got him off the street. Just like. No, but. Yeah, we thought what we'd do is we'd give Alex the same treatment we gave Haydn last time and interrogate him about his uni subject and just basically talk to him about how it's not biology and, you know, it's definitely much easier than what biology would...
Oh.
No? Making the bold claims straight away. Right, so why did you pick chemistry? First question.
I just thought it was an interesting subject to start with. It runs in my family.
Oh, okay.
My dad's a chemist. My granddad was a chemist.
What kind of like chemist is quite a broad
and my
type.
uncle was a drug dealer.
And that's how it got started. No, but like what kind of like you said chemist, quite a broad term. Is this like in a laboratory or is this
My
like
granddad
pharmaceuticals?
worked at Pilkington's Glass and helped develop the first transition lenses for glasses.
Immediately, this podcast is more interesting than I was ever expecting it to be. That's interesting. I like that. Yeah.
And my dad works in the waste management sector, like hazardous waste.
Oh, okay. So is this from laboratories or is this from
He
like?
works from home.
Oh. No.
Yeah, they're like
Where's the
waste from laboratory.
Okay, how much waste is coming out of your home?
Well, given that I live with Alex, I know.
Okay, so you were like, oh, I might as well just go in with that.
Yeah.
So that was that, and then what is the kind of the short-term future goal? Would you say you're doing a masters, aren't you?
He's
I
a
am
uni
doing a
student.
master's.
He hasn't a clue.
Yeah, none of us
No
do.
uni student has a clue what
None of
they're
us
doing.
do.
I'm not graduating until next year, so I've not
okay.
even thought about that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, then, well, yeah, Cam, you've got to get your finger, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. Otherwise, I will be part of the
At
unemployed
McDonald's?
masses. Yeah.
With a biology degree, not doing us any favours.
Yeah, just a stat now.
We talked a lot about what you study, Haydn, in
projects
your projects you do. Now, obviously, it's quite a practical subject. I imagine engineering, you have to make stuff and do that kind of thing. So, Alex, what kind of like projects, experiments? Not really like experiments, but like a project you have to do over several weeks, perhaps something like that.
I'm currently working on a group project.
They're always good, aren't they? We all love a group project.
Don't we all?
Interesting.
Oh dear, in the same way we love crippling hunger, Chinese burns.
Yeah. Okay, so you do a group project. Go on.
Yeah, I won't go too much into the details because I'm sure people listening aren't interested in
Chemistry?
advanced
No, they're not.
chemistry, no.
The biology podcast. Go on.
But
People are listening.
People are interested.
Someone's made it this far.
4 minutes in.
I would have clicked away. I'm done.
Yeah. Go on.
But I'm currently working on. It's not what people would consider standard chemistry. I'm based on the computer most of the time at the minute. I'm running calculations on energies of molecules, predicting how they react, while the rest of my group are in the laboratory actually synthesizing the molecules I'm...
So were you chucked in the PC lab by choice, or...?
I chose not to go into the actual lab.
And
It was pretty crafty, to be fair, as far as
there
you're
are story
concerned.
behind
I have the easy job. I sit and let a computer run a calculation for 6 hours and do nothing else.
Is there much of that in chemistry? Like, is there much sort of like computer simulation and bits like that?
There is a whole branch of chemistry which is based purely on the computational side of it.
Yeah.
The SIMS chemicals, basically.
Well,
just with a lot less clicking and.
So let's say so you simulate reaction and then see if these reactions actually happen in the laboratory.
Yeah, I can predict whether the reaction happens, or if I have two similar molecules, I can predict which one's got more energy, so will react quickest. Or
is it like the precise shapes of the molecules as well? Like,
so I can
to what angle a molecule is sort of
how many
poking out of
hexagons
one.
are in it?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'll design a molecule in the molecule builder on the computer, and I can run a calculation which can take anywhere between 30 minutes to 6.5 hours.
Damn.
And it'll come back and it'll have rotated various bonds to work out which conformation of the atoms is the lowest energy for that molecule.
Genuinely sounds quite interesting. Like,
I was gonna say, not if you sat in the room running a 6-hour calculation.
Honestly, I get there at 10 o'clock on a Thursday. I design the molecule, I click 3 buttons, and then I just have a blue screen of text running in front of me. A number of hours.
That sounds like
can you open up other tabs? Just anything on
I
YouTube?
tend to sit there watching Netflix.
Fair.
Do you guys get much of that in biology? Like, do you have to ever run computer simulations? Because
you can, but a lot of it is, or the one that for me that instantly springs to mind is population dynamics. So if you've got certain amount of predators in an area, you're going to see a knock-on effect on prey, and that's also going to have a knock-on effect on plant abundance and stuff. And so you can run studies to say, okay, well, what if I had this specific number of a thing, but I put environmental conditions on that place? And also, climate change modelling is a big one, because it's all about basically the same thing. It's just like what if because you're trying to model. Year on year you're trying to make them more and more complex so you can include more and more factors. So like in more recent times they've been able to account for stuff like volcano eruptions and stuff, and how that has just the most minute effect on the grand scheme of things compared to what we do as humans. The
other thing I was going to say was infection rates and kind of like the spread of disease is something that's in the SIR model. I don't know if you heard of that, Cam. But like, you know, the number of susceptible people, the number of infected people, and the number of recovered people. Obviously, the dynamics between those groups change quite a lot because obviously the people that go from susceptible could go into the infected group, and then the numbers that get out of that group, you know, they then say it's a disease that has a good like an antibody memory, so you know the disease comes back, it's not as prevalent, that kind of thing.
I've played that browser game that everyone played.
Oh yeah, what was that?
It was like
Plague.
Contagion or something.
Plague. You have to design your plague.
You design your disease, and then you see how far you can get.
So that's the closest to biology simulation. Is plague. Oh, okay. No, I didn't realise that was something that you'd do. Sit there and just watch the computer.
I don't know why I assumed that wasn't as prominent a thing in biology and chemistry as it is in engineering.
So I guess you do.
I mean, I guess we've all got to check if our stuff works before we go putting big things into place. Yeah.
No, I didn't realise it was such a. I mean, it makes so much sense. It's perfect. You know, you run the simulation in the laboratory, and then you test it. Especially, I don't know what kind of chemicals you work with. Like, I don't know, particularly expensive, or like, you know, you don't want to waste them.
Well, I was going to say, to be fair, you've had a few moments where you've come back and told me, my lab was delayed by 2 days because someone nearly blew up my booth or something.
That happened earlier in the year.
Go on.
Earlier in the year. Basically, we were running this experiment, and it needed to be run under completely anaerobic conditions.
Okay.
And this...
Explain that for the engineer. No oxygen, okay.
Alright. Basically, they all had to hold their breath for the whole experiment.
It was a time trial.
So basically what happened was you had a vacuum sucking all the oxygen out, but then, so you couldn't allow any oxygen in either, so you had to have a liquid nitrogen trap to stop the solvents going into the vacuum. But if any oxygen gets in there, that condenses in the liquid nitrogen tap and is a shock-sensitive explosive.
So who shocks it? Did anyone shock it? Is that...
No.
Are you talking like you give it a tap and it will just... Or...
Not quite that severe, but anything like significant. Also, it explodes in the presence of any flammable liquid.
Okay.
And a lot of the solvents in a chemistry lab is flammable.
So what had this person done, like, specifically?
He'd left a tap open, an oxygen tap open
okay.
on his setup, and had been sucking oxygen into the system for 1.5 hours.
Damn. The place was just a ticking time bomb in Manchester. Okay, so, I mean, that sounds a lot more dangerous than what I've had to deal with. I'm just looking at Barbary macaques, one of them might attack me, but, you know, hardly like my lab is going to blow up.
Yeah, whenever I go into the lab, I have to fill out a risk assessment form for any chemicals.
Really? Do you have to do it every time?
Every single time.
So
I think we're meant to, but it's always like, oh, just don't stick your fingers in the plug sockets. We're just like...
I know your engineering degree is quite hard.
Like, yeah, right, that's fine.
90% of the ones I fill in at least have one chemical on the hazard just says fatal if inhaled.
It's got to work out which one.
Yeah, no, that one.
Oh, keep it going. I'll find it eventually.
Okay, so there's the group project that you're simulating, and then you know, and what is kind of what is the end goal? Because obviously you say you weren't going to go into detail because it's probably quite boring. It's chemistry, but like, yeah, we can agree. Rip. But like, yeah, like what is the end goal of this experiment?
So, as I said, the rest of my group are in the lab synthesizing the molecules I'm currently running calculations on. So the goal, hopefully, is to then, after I finish running these calculations and they finish synthesizing, is to go into the lab again and run the actual experiments for real and see how the comparison works out, whether the computer has predicted it or whether something different happens. Because the computer can predict something and then something completely different can happen.
Wrong. Yeah.
To be fair, I gotta say, like, when you talk about, it's almost as if, like, because you're doing it at degree level, and it's like you're actually making something, and you're looking at a thing that you made and you predicted. Whereas when we did sort of chemistry in like GCSE, I didn't do it any further, but I was kind of like, I'm just being told what this is, and sort of
this is an
how
alkene, this is an alkane, and
exactly, yeah. It just, yeah, I think that's what I would have been more interested. I think if I was like, oh, I'm going to make such and such, which is used in this, this, and this, and then
it's quite entertaining to because the first thing we got told in first year was everything you've learned at A level or GCSE is practically wrong.
it's always good when that starts.
I get told that every year. It's like, everything we
Remember
told you last year, that was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
steel isn't that strong anymore, guys. Now we're working with the big metals.
Every year they go up, like, oh, steel's quite strong, and then you get to second year, actually, titanium is quite strong. And then, yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so do you have to do, like, a big final year project? So I know that I have to do one.
Yeah, I'll have to do a final year project. That's what the group project's for this year. It's to get you ready for going
Is your final year project in a group, or is it just...
No, it's a solo project, but it's to give you the techniques of planning the project, designing the whole thing yourself.
Yeah, I got the same thing that semester as well.
Yeah. I get a booklet about Easter, just full of abstracts.
And you can just
and I
pick
pick 5.
And you get...
Rank them.
Is this for next year?
That's for next year.
Right, okay. Did you have any choice on what your group project was going to be this semester?
We had a 5-question questionnaire that they completely ignored.
Oh, nice.
Who do you not want to work with? And then they gave you those people. It's an extra challenge. So, is there any... It's, you know, quite hard to decide, but is there any kind of specific thing that you would hope would come up with one of these possible experiments that you could do?
I'm quite enjoying what I'm doing at the minute, but having said that, I probably wouldn't want to spend the entire year staring at a blue screen as the numbers run from...
As you say that, I was like, so what you're saying is you're enjoying sitting watching Netflix for 6 hours on the trot, and then
how to get a
student
degree.
experience.
pretty much.
So Haydn, do you have to do a final year project kind of thing?
Yeah, I do. I've got a group project going on at the minute, which is basically if you decide to drop out this year, then it will cover for like the individual projects. So there's like a decent individual portion to it. I'm not sure what the individual projects are for next year, but the group project that I've got going on at the minute, they gave us 25 options, and they were all terrible, but one, which was effectively design a robot for Robot
Oh yeah,
Wars.
you mentioned this.
Yeah, and I should have put that as my first choice, because I know a couple of people...
I guess it's quite popular.
I didn't. No, but the thing is, like he said, every year 30 odd people apply for it, and there's only like a maximum of 8 people.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm getting it, and I haven't.
Not if you put it as first choice.
They have like reasons to like you. They want you to put reasons of why you should do those certain things, like skills
the
or
only
whatever.
reason is, I want
Yeah,
to
this is
design a
it.
robot.
Like, I have like no skills that should make me any better to anyone else. It's
My
just
life
like,
ambition is to be on Robot Wars.
yeah. My justification would be please, and that's all I have. My first choice that I did put down was about making renewable energy solutions.
We're right in my wheelhouse now.
I didn't unfortunately get this one, making solutions for domestic purposes, so like just people in their houses or whatever, which could have been interesting.
So do all the projects actually involve physically making a thing, or
No,
not just
no.
just designing?
None of,
You
like,
don't actually get to make a robot.
some of them you have the opportunity to make prototypes if you choose to.
Oh, okay, that'd be
but it's more about developing a report of the design than it is actually doing it. So the project that I ended up with is about improving railway safety at crossings, basically,
Now that
where like
sounds
the
riveting.
where the rails and the road cross.
Suddenly sitting at a computer for
Yeah.
6 hours does not sound
Yeah.
so
Meanwhile,
bad.
he's just playing Hornby
Yeah.
Train Simulator over and over again. Trying to just...
I don't know though, sometimes, you were here when this happened, I'd been running a calculation for 4.5 hours and then it just crashed and gave up.
Oh, I imagine
There's
it.
sometimes.
My favourite thing about it as well is when it decides it's not going to do it anymore, it just goes, the link has died.
Oh.
In those words.
In those exact words.
Like
yeah.
you were playing Zelda, just the link has died, and then...
Oh.
Stops.
Go on, you...
have to start again.
There's been a few times when I've been at my study building and there's been like third or fourth years running long simulations for fluid dynamics or whatever they're doing, and the room will be booked, the computer room will be booked, so the professor or lecturer or whatever will come along and just turn off the computer. Just straight up, just
What,
turn
in front
off.
of them?
Yeah, like sometimes in front of them, but sometimes they've like left the room to run the simulation for 6 hours or whatever it
Really?
is,
Oh,
and they'll just turn it off and they'll just come back to a someone else sat in their chair and their simulation just gone, and they've got to start it all again.
I don't trust people enough to leave the computer.
No,
I
no.
sit there.
Is that what you say when someone asks why you've been watching Netflix for 6 hours? I can't trust
I'm looking
anyone.
after this computer.
I'm looking after it. Cam, so you've got a project as well.
I do, yes.
Have
I
you-
was going to say...
I think you're going to talk
it'll
about that another time, perhaps, but...
well, I don't know if there will be another podcast between here and then, but at least one element of my project is going to be podcasted.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. It's going to be...
Where did you get that idea from?
God, I couldn't think, to be
Yeah.
honest. I was like, I need something where I've already got a platform, you know, I've already got...
I've got a platform. 17
He's
people
got an
holding you
audience.
up.
4 of which are in this room.
Yeah, well,
You got 13
Actually,
people on
only
you.
3.
Oh, snake.
leave. No, but it'll be very different to this normal stuff, because whereas this is incredibly random and rambling,
especially today and the last episode as well.
this is going to be a tight run ship. I'm going to be steering it in the right direction. 10 minutes tops. We're going to get into some real juicy climate change topics, and it's going to be.
I can't wait.
It's going to be. It's more exciting than railways. I'll tell you that.
Alright, fine. I'll allow that.
Have you kind of started your railway thing?
No, I've only got to set it last week.
Oh, okay. So, do you know who your tutor is and that kind of thing?
No, we get assigned. So it's like the idea is that you have companies basically come in from outside the uni, and
Oh, really?
with a project, yeah, and you work with representatives of the company or whatever, developing these solutions. But now I'm sort of week 1 in this stuff still.
So to be fair, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I was building links at the same time as
Yeah.
making my project,
Yeah.
because most of mine will be sitting in my room, writing, tapping out, and doing a lot of
Have
thinking.
you got any actual laboratory work to do, Cam, or is it just writing?
none at all.
Ooh.
Oh dear.
I was going to say, don't groan. I hate it. I got out of that as soon as I could.
Cool.
That's a win as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So I thought let's incite some controversy and have some debate. And I remember one time we were all playing and we were having a chat because I mentioned that a girl at my university had gone to the Students' Union saying that some of the third year and I believe fourth year chemistry and physics projects were sponsored by Shell, the oil company. And I remember that caused a little bit of debate and disagreement in our group, and I just wanted to bring that up again because I thought it was quite. I don't think we went into it enough, and I think we should go there again. So.
How much time have we got?
We've got a whole 9 minutes, mate. Sit and knock this out.
Cameron's going to talk for 8 of them.
Yeah, and for the last minute you squeeze yours in. So this girl was basically saying how like we should be cutting like funding towards, or not cutting funding, but stopping these companies from, I don't know, exerting their force because they're bad because they use like oil and that. Essentially, I don't think she did chemistry. I think she did.
Drama.
Maybe we would disagree.
English language.
Yeah, liberal arts basically. But Cameron, you controversially, I think.
Controversial.
No, because I think like if you imagine like we've just literally made the joke that it would be a liberal arts student who would have that opinion, but as a scientist, you think that is kind of the way forward.
What, to de-invest in carbon-based companies? Yes.
Yes, and then I believe you said that actually. Yeah, I'm loving the controversy already. The tension in the room is building. And then you said that actually those companies do invest in renewable energy sources, and that there's...
I think what I said was that renewable energy is still a developing field, and we've not really got a practical alternative to carbon-based energy, I guess.
Yeah.
And therefore there's not a problem with it, I guess.
But there's point to be made that where the money is to put into looking into these renewable energy sources is in the oil companies. Like, that's where the money could be. So
but
if you were
putting it there, that's the thing. They're not putting even a tenth of their income into renewables because it's so much cheaper for them to dig it out of the ground. But that's not going to last, which is why if you stop like essentially subsidising the big companies by endorsing them with, grad students and stuff like that, if you put it into groups that are exclusively renewable, that is an inherently better system.
But you got to argue that the university is meant to be training up people, they are the scientists of the future. So let's say that these chances weren't available, these companies weren't there. Would these grads still have the same opportunities? Because even if you work for Shell for 4 years and you dig up lots of oil, if you then go on to do something with renewable energy, surely it's worth a while. It's controversial.
It's definitely a valuable experience for the individual. But this is probably the cringiest things I've ever said. We're literally one planet. And we've only got one, and we can't go anywhere else. And right now we're
Elon Musk disagrees, but yeah.
Okay, and what's Elon Musk doing? He's not digging fuel out of the ground, is he?
No.
So it's valuable for the individual, but it is the responsibility of the individual to make more well-informed decisions about the future and about future generations.
I think for a lot of people, engineers around me, it's an issue of the amount of bank that they offer working for oil companies and everything like that. They just pay a hell of a lot.
Which is why, if they stop offering the schemes, if they say, no, we're going to stop offering you grad schemes, then they get less money, and then they have to change their ways. You have to make it inconvenient for the company to dig up fossil fuels if you're ever going to incite change.
It's such a small scale thing, though, I think. Like, I don't feel like it's really going to be significant if individuals really change their approach. It's if governments and countries change their approach to fossil fuels more than anything.
That's what, it's not suggesting, this one grad student can't get his little grad scheme with Shell. Like that's not where the difference is made. It's where one uni goes, right, we're going to make the right call here. And then the next one goes, you know what, they can put that on there. They like the University of Liverpool, let's say, is now saying we don't endorse Shell, we don't endorse any carbon-based, and then suddenly Manchester.
It would have to be a big group, wouldn't it?
And then suddenly Manchester goes, okay, that's actually a really great call on literally anyone who's sort of green-minded enough to make that shout. And then all of a sudden you've got groups of unis that are pulling out of the scheme. And then all of a sudden, you're picking up momentum. And like you say, the future scientists, they're the ones that are going to build the world of tomorrow. they're going to build that with the attitudes of let's find a better way.
You're very passionate about it and you make an interesting point. It's difficult because it's kind of, I don't know, is it a little bit the needs of many outweigh the needs of few? Because like you might have individual grad students that miss out on opportunities, but overall it's better for the human race.
Okay, and which one is more important by a landslide?
Well, no, yes.
On the grander scheme of things, yeah.
Yeah, of course, on the grander scheme of things, but
If I was offered 35 grand after I graduated to go work for Shell, I would do that.
yeah.
Yeah, and it would be very difficult for anyone to say otherwise, but it takes a special kind of group to be able to say, let's make the smart call.
And you'd like to be that group, Cameron. Well done for volunteering.
I've got nothing to
Why
offer
don't you
an
be the-
oil company.
You go to your next SU AGM and you make the same point as that girl made at the Kiel SU AGM and say that, you know...
I think the bigger argument we were having when we brought this up last time was how developed alternative energy sources are. Was the bigger argument we were having.
Because you were saying that we can't completely de-invest in them when they're still providing the bulk of our energy, and that is true. But again, like I say, that has to change for one, and for secondly, it's never going to change if you don't. However, what I was saying is, in a lot of places, renewables are already there. So, like, you've got numerous examples, particularly I found in island nations. They have this amazing capacity for going, we want to be completely sustainable, not because we're green hippies, but because it's actually really expensive to pump oil across an ocean from the mainland, and we get huge tariffs put on us. So what we're going to do is make our own home-catered solutions in our particular field. And I would have thought, well, I was going to say, this is putting it on your doorstep a bit, but I would have thought as an engineer, one of the main sort of intriguing parts of an engineer is going, well, where am I? What am I trying to do? This is how I do it.
Yeah, the one thing I was wondering, where are these island nations that you're talking about?
I know for a fact that Iceland is, well, most of Iceland is run purely off geothermal energy from the volcanoes.
They're lucky they have that.
They use most of their energy comes from that.
Denmark is essentially a big sort of mainland block, but with these thousands of little islands just north of them, and in almost every case they're getting their oil pumped to them from the mainland, but that's really expensive.
I think one of the interesting points is that when especially I was trying to think about what could an engineer and a chemist and a biologist actually have a conversation about and all feel like they could have an input on it. Really, renewable energy sources and this kind of area is the one thing where these three topics have got to work together.
To be fair, actually, I remember back then I didn't tell you the cool one. I didn't tell you the cool renewable one, because you said quite correctly that the problem with renewables right now is that there's no way of storing the energy. You can create a fair amount of stock, but you can't store it.
No batteries big enough to store the amounts of power that you need.
So what this one, like, island nation, I believe it was like south of Spain or something, what they did was it's quite mountainous, so by extension they get quite a lot of rain.
Sure.
They get rain on the peaks. So what they did, they create this big reservoir at the top of a mountain.
Sure.
And a big reservoir at the bottom.
And run the water down when they need, I guess.
So it rains into the top reservoir. They can then run the water down the mountain. That generates electricity. You can send as much of that as you want to the houses, or what you can do with the spare energy, bearing in mind also that they've also got a lot of wind from coastal winds. So again, what you can do is you can take that wind power straight away, you can send that directly to houses, but the really cool thing they do is with all the spare energy that they have, they pump the water back up to the top of the hill. So you've got rainwater at the top, sends down, then you've got this big pool of water at the bottom. The pool of water at the bottom is your battery.
Yeah, sure, I see what you mean.
Because you can send it back up with the spare energy, and then you can send it straight back down again.
The whole island is effectively a hydroelectric power plant.
Yeah.
For itself.
Yeah.
Project for you, Haydn. Don't care about your train crossings. How to make the British Isles into one giant battery, basically.
I wish I could bail for my train crossings.
We definitely don't have enough mountains.
Yeah. No, true. Cool. All right. Well, I feel like there is stuff to talk about for another day, perhaps. As I said, you know, it's also I feel like we'd have our input in. We've only got one planet, guys, so we need to make the most of it.
There's a title. There's a title right there.
Only one planet.
I'm regretting it already.
You said it. All right, excellent. Well, there you go. Thank you very much for listening. I hope Alex, Haydn, thank you very much for coming along.
That's all right, mate.
I was going to say and look forward to the third instalment of the trilogy.
and who else do we get?
I was going to say famously the third of the trilogy, always being the worst of all the three.
Ooh. So. Ooh.
In most cases.
Which third of a trilogy?
Revenge of the Sith was the third in its trilogy, isn't it? That's the best of the like the prequels, isn't it?
He's not wrong.
I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong.
Still an inherently bad film.
And it's not biology anymore, so
I think at the time to end. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time on Survival of the Thickest.
Last Jedi, best Star Wars film ever made.
It isn't.